And welcome back to College Football Tradition here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. My name is Bryan. I'm joined alongside my bro host and co-host Jacob Vanderford. We are heading into week 9 of the college football season, and man, oh man, it's coach firings galore as Billy Napier, the latest coach to find himself unemployed. He's out at Florida, and there's plenty of names that could fill that spot that we'll get into today. But I know that Jacob and I wanted to start this show with some fun little new segments. So, Jacob, why don't you kick us off with the one that you got from me?
Nice. All right. So, we've been listening to a lot of college football podcasts just in the atmosphere of Spotify and Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to get some new things going, get some new segments going for you all that you can look forward to every week. And I don't really have a name for it yet. But feel free to put those in the comments if you have any ideas for us. That would be great. But this one for Bryan, I have some history questions that are sort of just like obscure little things that like you may not know, but like knowing Bryan, he probably does. So I'll start with the first one.
Okay, I'm gonna
Um,
you see my hands, right? Like I can't Google nothing.
yeah, I see your hands.
And if you're watching, like you could see that too.
This
If
is
you're
real,
listening,
y'all.
just trust Jacob.
We have video on Spotify that you can watch.
We have video.
Um, Okay, I hope I'm phrasing this right. What football team, what college football team played 12 years before achieving statehood? So they played football for 12 years before actually being established as a state.
Oh, that's a fun question because college football started in the 1860s, but it was, 1869 as we discuss on our History of American College Football
Go
summer
watch it.
series. Go watch it. Go back and watch it. It's
Go listen to
timeless.
it. It's a podcast.
Um,
It's not a TV show. But we think it.
but that is a very good question because there were probably because it was a lot of the Northeast schools and a lot of the current Ivy League schools that were playing in the early days, and those were obviously states and had been for a long time. I'm I'm trying to think of when like California established statehood, like because I know that some of those schools like Cal and Stanford started pretty early, and then even like Oregon and Washington State. But my gut is telling me Hawaii. Can I go with Hawaii?
You gonna lock it in?
Yeah, lock it in.
Okay. It is not Hawaii. The correct answer is Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma. So I'll give you a little
Yeah.
synopsis. So John A. Hartz, a student from Kansas, started the Oklahoma football program in September of 1895, and Oklahoma didn't receive statehood until November of 1907. So there's
Oh.
it's just pretty crazy that like they played during that time span of 12 years. And so yeah, it's Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. I don't know if any Sooner fans knew about that, but that's one of the facts that I have for you.
That is so good. I love that one because when you think about that part of the country, obviously like big Native American history and reservations in that area, and a lot of those states weren't established into the United States for a while. Man, those states that were established in the early 20th century are very hard to
Yeah.
remember. I can remember like the old
Yeah.
ones and then like the later ones, but
I'm
man,
just surprised that like you even like ventured to guess because like if I was asked that question, I would have been like, oh, I have no idea. I'm just gonna throw out like Michigan or something.
Oklahoma.
Like
Dang, Oklahoma. Good one. Good
crushed
one.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next question for you. And I hope I'm phrasing this right too. Okay, so what what team um what team of my gosh, I don't know how I want to say this because it's gonna give it away. Um okay, so Autzen Stadium in Oregon, right?
Yeah.
So Autzen Stadium is named after Thomas. So Thomas E. Autzen, there was a foundation that gave this chunk of money for the stadium, but it's named after Thomas J. Autzen, his father. And so his father went to school at this school, at this program. Can you guess what school the Oregon football stadium is named after? And it's like kind of crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my first instinct would be like Washington or Oregon State, like one of those two. Um, can you at least let me know if it's one of those two?
It is.
It is one of those two. Odds. Hmm. I mean, I'm just gonna go with Washington.
Oh man, you're
Oh,
so close. You're down to two. It's Oregon State. It's the Beavers, and
really?
it's the Civil War. You know that those schools go at it. Not as much anymore now with Oregon being in the Big Ten and Oregon State kind of in flux with the the Pac-12 and then the Pac-2 and whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But a little bit of background on that. So the Autzen Foundation, like I talked about, they gave 250,000 from that from Thomas E. Autzen, who is the son who graduated from the University of Oregon in 1943. But the foundation named the stadium after Thomas J. Autzen, his father, and he was an alumnus of Oregon State. And yeah, so you would have thought like, oh, there's like a curse over this stadium with this guy's name being from another school. But yeah, the Oregon is 19-7-1 against the Beavers at home at Autzen. So no curse there.
Okay. Okay. Wow, that's a really interesting history fact. Okay, I
There
love
you
that.
go. There's our little segment. History facts with Bryan and Jacob.
I love that segment.
College
I
football history. I don't know. We're gonna come up with a jingle.
college football tradition.
Yeah, crushed it.
Okay. All right.
Nice. We
So,
got another segment, folks.
okay, I got a segment for you.
Oh
I got
God.
two questions as well. And my segment for you is, so if you know anything about Jacob, you know that as a child, he was able to name all these different nicknames of these various universities and their programs. So he was able to name, Buckeyes for Ohio State, but he was a kid, like, so he was able to do it for all, even the small programs. I'm going to go even smaller.
Oh God. My dad hyped me up too much in the dad cast. This is not gonna be pretty.
He did. He really, really did. Can you give me the nickname of FCS Morgan State? They're in Baltimore, Maryland. They're in the MEAC. Morgan State.
Oregon State and Baltimore. I don't know. I was thinking of McNeese State. They're the Cowboys. Um,
Oh, that's good. Good guess. I mean, you got it, but yeah.
Morgan State. Uh, I don't know. I'm just gonna say the Mountaineers. I know that's wrong, and I know that's West Virginia, but yeah, I'll go with that.
Mountaineers. Okay, this was a tough question because I don't know who would necessarily get this unless you're in like the DMV area, but Morgan State, they're the Bears in
The
Baltimore.
Bears. Okay, what like that's like the easiest name that I could have thought of. Dang
I
it.
know.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay, gotcha. This next
So I'm 0
question,
and 1.
your own one so far. Um, can can you give me the three FBS schools that are nicknamed the Aggies? And then I have a
Okay.
bonus question to this too.
Okay. So Texas A&M. I know Colorado State used to be the Aggies, now they're the Rams. Um, oh God, I should know this. Aggies, 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 Aggies. Utah State. So I have Texas A&M and Utah State.
Mhm.
And can you give me the region?
Define region, like time zone?
Like uh like southwest, northeast, like that type of thing.
Southwest.
Okay. New Mexico State. New
Yeah,
Mexico State, Utah State, and Texas A&M. Those are the Aggies.
nice. You got it. That was it. 3 for 3. The bonus question to this is: can you name the two FCS programs that are also the Aggies? I'll give
Oh
you a hint.
God.
One of them is an HBCU school. That's the
Um,
hint. And then the other is on the completely other side of the country. So they're both in states that border oceans on complete other sides of the country, and one's an HBCU school. Obviously, the one on the Atlantic side is the HBCU.
And they're both FCS.
They're both FCS.
Um, I'm gonna say nah. I was gonna say Howard, but I think they're the Bison. Um,
You're right, they are.
damn, that's hard. Um, HBCUs. On the East Coast, what is over there? I'm trying to think of like a God, that's hard. Okay, I'm just gonna throw it out there so we can move on and say Cal Poly, which is not FCS, and mm, Florida A&M, which I believe are the Rattlers, so I'm totally wrong. But yeah, let me know.
See, it's funny because you could name the nicknames of the schools you know. North Carolina A&T, they're the Aggies, and it's
Damn.
actually you.
Oh, okay. North
Yeah,
Carolina A&T.
and
Okay.
UC Davis is the other one.
UC.
UC.
Dang it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was between UC Davis and Cal Poly for some reason. Okay.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's you were close regionally. I mean, not the Florida one, but the other
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
At
yeah.
all.
That,
All
that
right,
was pretty
cool.
good.
Well, I got a half a point maybe.
No,
One,
neither one
one,
of us scored
one for
on.
two, two and a half, one for
Yeah,
three. Nice.
but
Fun segments.
fun segments. Yeah, we'll try to start off some shows with that moving forward, but not so fun. Billy Napier out at Florida. What was really coming into this year, a promising year, another difficult schedule. Obviously, the loss to South Florida still stung. This firing came after a win against Mississippi State. Not the first time that's happened, but an interesting time to do so. Jacob, what were your initial thoughts when you saw Napier got canned?
I think it made sense for Florida. There was just a lot of promise going into this year. I believe they were ranked. I don't think top 10, but I think they were like 12th at one point, and then they lost to
Yeah.
South Florida famously this year. South Florida has been on a tear recently. I think they're number 19 going into this weekend. So I thought it made sense. I knew it was going to happen at some point this year. Did I think it was going to happen mid-season? No. But yeah, I'm curious what they're going to do from here. Because I think Billy Napier was a great recruiter. He always seemed to have top 10 recruiting classes coming in. Obviously, he got the Gatorade Football Player of the High School Player of the Year in DJ Lagway, who had that game with 5 picks and just hasn't really been up to par this season. So I think overall it makes sense. It had to happen at some point. Now I'm just curious who they think they're going to get down there in Gainesville.
I am also curious who they're going to get because, I mean, what I have to ask, like, what's the expectation at Florida? I mean, looking at your program, you're kind of looking down the road and you're like, well, Florida State, they're another one that's struggling, and at least we get them every year. But your SEC schedules have been difficult,
Yeah.
especially since the latest realignment. So you're really struggling. And I think that Florida fans need to kind of reconfigure what the expectation is. Obviously, I don't think Billy Napier was meeting what that expectation should be. But if you aren't even like getting into the bowl games, if you aren't coming out with any big wins, which they really weren't under him, then it is time to move on. And I feel that way. That's what Penn State decided on. They weren't getting any big wins. However, Penn State on the flip side was beating a lot of teams that weren't as good up until this year.
Mm.
So I feel like both were in similar boats. Kind of just the fall was a little bit bigger um, for Napier, I would say, at Florida, just because of how quickly that leash was pulled.
What do you think about Florida? Are they a perennial football team? Are they a blue blood football team?
No,
Personally, I don't think so. They only have
no,
three national championships, 96, 2006, and 2008. Think about Tim Tebow, you think about Urban Meyer seasons, and then you think about when Danny Werfel was the quarterback in 96, Steve Spurrier, so I personally don't think that they're a blue blood. I don't think they're a
no.
perennial football team. And in an SEC conference that is stacked with top tier football teams, Alabama. You think about a team like even like Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss has always pretty good. LSU is always pretty good. And now you got teams like Vanderbilt and then Texas and Oklahoma have entered the equation within the past several years. So Florida is just getting knocked down pegs and pegs on this ladder of SEC teams. And
Yeah.
so I just don't know, like, what are they hoping? What are the Florida fans hoping for? Like, I get that you're like, yes, like we want our football team to be great. Everybody does, but at some point you just kind of have to settle with it. I'm settling it with Nebraska. Like, are we ever going to be good again? So you just got to see who they get at head football coach. I don't know. Like, I've heard names spiraling around. Like, people have said Lane Kiffin might go there from Ole Miss. I don't really think that's going to happen. I've heard Eli Drinkwitz. I've heard Alex Golish, who's at USF, who beat Florida this year. Even like Clark Lee from Vanderbilt, and obviously James Franklin, who just got fired at Penn State. What are your thoughts on their next steps, Ryan?
Ooh, I can't see Clark Lee leaving Vanderbilt for any job that isn't like remember James Franklin left Vanderbilt for Penn State. So if I'm Clark Lee and you're having all this success, you're having a guy at quarterback who might make it to New York, you're in the playoff hunt at Vanderbilt. Like you're in the SEC hunt at Vanderbilt. He's doing things that have not been done there before, at least in our lifetime and in 50 years. So if I'm looking at Clark Lee, I would expect him to take one of the higher jobs, like Penn State, maybe, or if LSU opened up. But I wouldn't expect him to take a Florida gig that at this point, with where he brought Vanderbilt to it almost seems like a lateral move. I do think Billy Napier will find a home. I think he'll probably have to go back to the group of six, but it probably will surface there. I don't know what Florida will be looking for. I mean, yeah, I could see James Franklin there because he still, to me, is a power four coach. I would be
Yeah,
shocked if he
for
wasn't a power
sure. Did
four
you see
coach.
his college game day interview where he was like,
Yeah.
I wanted to win a national championship there at Penn State. I guess we're just gonna have to win one somewhere else.
Mhm.
Like, I still think that he can put a team into the college football playoff hunt. And if that's Florida, I don't know. We'll see. I've also heard UCLA or Stanford or places like that. I don't know if he can get them to the CFP at those places, but maybe it's at Florida. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then I mean, to kind of spin off this too, like a lot of people have been complaining, I'm realizing this year too, in addition to years prior, like the SEC bias that is existing in the polls. And I'm wondering when I look at the SEC schedule this year, or this week, I should say, when I look at Ole Miss playing Oklahoma, both have one loss under their belt. I'm looking at Alabama going into a hostile environment of South Carolina. You have Missouri and Vanderbilt both playing one loss apiece. You also have Texas going to Mississippi State, only as 6.5 point favorites. Tennessee going into Kentucky, only as 7.5 point favorites. Texas A&M going into LSU in what is an elimination game probably for LSU. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of things like that, and I'm like, a lot of people are expecting the SEC to have a few playoff teams, but this is a big elimination weekend for them.
Yeah. Yeah. SEC, it's tough because all the teams in that conference are just top tier, great teams. And you can only have so many teams come out of that conference just based on the schedules that these teams play. Like this week alone, you have Texas A&M and LSU. You have Vanderbilt and Missouri. Like you talked about with Alabama and South Carolina. You talked about all these teams, like all, and they're all playing. Against these teams like at home and in their environment. You talked about Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Like, yeah, it's going to be a brawl and definitely it's going to be hard to see some of these teams what teams come out of there still standing and what teams are still alive in this college football playoff hunt. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. SEC for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And one of the big arguments this week was Alabama. Like, people were arguing that they have probably one of the best resumes in the conference, which I do think that they do, even though A&M is undefeated. A&M's best win right now is Notre Dame. And that won't really improve this weekend, considering like you're playing an LSU team that if you beat is going to have three losses. So if I'm looking at the SEC as a whole, who is your top team? Because for me, I'm looking at Alabama. They're the reason that Missouri has one loss. They're the reason that Vanderbilt has one loss. They're the reason that Georgia has one loss. Like, if this team didn't lose to Florida State, they'd have the best resume in college football, in my opinion.
That's my thing though. Like you lost to a bad team in Florida
Yeah,
State that just lost to a terrible Stanford team who is just trying to get through the season.
right.
And I'm just like, I can't get over that. I know it was the first game. I know like Florida State looked great, but like they won in convincing fashion against Alabama. Ty Simpson did not look good. Granted, he has been great the past several games, and you talked about wins over teams like Missouri and Vanderbilt and Tennessee and Georgia. Those are all fantastic wins.
Yeah.
But I still just can't get over that fact that they lost to Florida State in that way. So I can't confidently say that they are my best team in the SEC.
Okay.
Um, I don't know who I would pick over them though. Like
Yeah.
A&M looks strong, but am I confident that they can win a game in the CFP, take their team to the national championship? Like I don't know, but do I think that they're going to be in the SEC championship game? Probably. So I might have to go with Texas A&M at this moment. Um, Georgia, having lost to Alabama, puts them down a peg for me. I would have picked Georgia if they didn't lose to Alabama, but granted, they only lost by 3 in that game. It felt like more. Vanderbilt is another one of those teams. They lost to Alabama, of course, but I think they're continuing to climb. And if they're able to beat Missouri this week, another top 20 ranked win, I think that team is going to be really strong and obviously already in that CFP contention.
Yeah.
So I might have to say A&M is the best team in the SEC, but Alabama is a very, very close second.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. And this is the reason why, in my opinion, if I'm just going off of the wins and resume, I'm like, to me, Indiana, I would have ranked number one right now.
Yeah.
Do I think that they're better than Ohio State? No, I don't.
No.
I just think that when it comes to like the resume, Indiana's win at Oregon is better than anything on Ohio State's slate right now. However, Ohio State has a couple good wins as well. The Minnesota win continues to look good. The Texas win, although it's not like as great as it once was or what we thought it would be, it's still easily a top 25 team like Texas is, in my opinion. And the defense is the main reason for that. So all credit to the Longhorn defense there. So when I think about the best team right now, I still have it as Ohio State, and I'm happy to say that. But Indiana's
Sure.
resume, I think, is number one. I think Ohio State's is number two. And if we're just going off the wins, Alabama's is number three, in my opinion, because they are the reason that three teams in the country don't have a perfect record. So that's why Alabama, to me, is that number three team. And if they didn't lose to Florida State, they'd be my number one team,
Yeah.
pretty easily, resume wise,
Yeah, for
just based
sure.
on that.
Yeah, and I wish Indiana would play Ohio State this year. I wish those two teams were going at it because those are like probably the top two teams in the country, like you talked about. Would have been fun to
Mhm.
see Mendoza go against Sayin in the
Yeah.
passing game, and I think Mendoza is probably the front runner for the Heisman right now.
I think so too. Like if I watch him and Saiyan both play, like Saiyan is so efficient. That dude completes
Yeah,
everything.
his
I mean,
accuracy, the way the ball comes out of his hand, it's just a pure pocket passer.
yes. But if I'm going off of like, man, who he is to their team, like Mendoza really does it for me. So I think both of those guys are in a heated Heisman battle. And I think it's going to be a quarterback who wins this year just because there are so many great quarterbacks. I think Ty Simpson at Alabama has obviously played really well. Marcel Reed has played really well for Texas A&M, and he'll get challenged down the stretch as well. Um, I'm wondering, we've talked so much about Big Ten and SEC. Looking at the Big 12 slate this week, like BYU traveling to a 5-2 Iowa State team. BYU
Mm.
obviously still undefeated. And then you also have Baylor um, traveling to Cincinnati this week, a 4-3 Baylor team who has some pretty heartbreaking losses going against the Cincinnati team whose only loss remains that Nebraska game.
Man, Cincinnati looks good. I like a lot of people have them sort of as a sleeper, like under the radar. Like people don't talk about that as much as they should. Cincinnati looks really good. And they have Brendan Sorsby, who, in my opinion, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. running the ball on the ground, throwing the ball in the air. Not did not play well against Nebraska in that first game, but again, that was the first game. Just kind of getting his feet under him. He is a veteran. He's been around for a long time. But again, like I still am very high on Brendan Sorsby. And if you look at the schedule, they play Baylor, they play Utah. Utah is a team that you shouldn't sneeze at. Obviously, BYU beat them, but it was a close game. Dampier still looks like a good quarterback. Defense needs to improve a little bit, but Utah's still pretty high for me in the Big 12. Arizona, that could be a tough game with Fafita, but then you get to BYU, and if Cincinnati can win the next three games and plays BYU, and that's at home, mind you, if Cincinnati can beat BYU at home, that and BYU stays undefeated, that is going to be a huge game. I think that could skyrocket Cincinnati into the college football playoff contention. Obviously, they got TCU at the end of the year as well, playing TCU at home. TCU is going to be at home in that game. But I'm looking at Cincinnati, and I'm like, y'all, like, we need to start talking about Cincinnati a lot more. They are number 21 in the country right now. They're playing lights out. I look at Corleone and that defensive side of the ball, big nose tackle, stuffs the run, very underrated football player. So yeah, I'm pretty high on Cincinnati. And BYU, obviously, they looked great in last week's game. I think they're going to continue rolling going into Ames, Iowa. I think they'll beat Iowa State, who is slipping and slipping. And I made the prediction, I believe last week's podcast, Matt Campbell leaves Iowa State this year. I still think that that's going to happen based on their schedule, based on who I think they're going to lose to. I think Matt Campbell might be one of those coaches that goes to a team like Penn State or Florida. So that's kind of where I'm at with those two games in the Big 12.
That's very interesting. I think if Matt Campbell wants those jobs, he's going to have to win a few more. I think at least nine of those have to be wins. He can't come out of this season 8-4. Going to Cincinnati though, like Baylor has been struggling, especially defensively. But I just want to talk about Cincinnati's remaining schedule because is there a better list of quarterbacks that they're going to go up against than
Probably not.
Cincinnati? Like Baylor, you got Sawyer Robertson, one of the leading passers in the country. Utah, Devin Dampier. Arizona, Noah Fafita, who's, he's been there for what feels like forever. He's still a phenomenal player. Bachmeyer at BYU, and then Hoover at TCU. That's their five remaining quarterbacks that they have to go up against. However, Brendan Sorsby, he's a name that should be up there, included with all of those guys, if not above a lot of those guys, based on the way he's played this year. I mean, just when he gets out of the pocket, he has the ability to run the ball, and that's been the difference for them, I think, the last couple of weeks. I think that if Cincinnati can pull out a win against Baylor, they'll be ranked higher than a lot of people are going to expect once that college football playoff poll comes out. I'm very high on what the Bearcats are doing.
You know what's? I have an insane stat for you that I just pulled up. So Brendan Sworsley, here are his stats on the year: 1,700 yards, 1,732 yards passing, 18 touchdowns passing, only one interception, and that was that late game interception against Nebraska, which could have won them that game.
Yeah.
And guess what their QBR is?
What?
His QBR is 85.5, which ranks him sixth in the country, which is insane. So you think about all those stats, this guy could be a dark horse Heisman candidate, folks, that we're just not even talking about, which is crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, he really, really can be. He's right up there statistically, just not name recognition wise with like Julian Sayin and Mendoza getting the recognition that he has earned as well. Sorbsy, like he has a chance to get up in that realm. Yeah, so a lot of interesting games for the Big 12 and the SEC this weekend. A lot of playoff indicating games for both of those leagues. If you have to fast forward, Jacob, to the end of the season, you're looking at the college football playoff potential, looking at everybody's schedule. How many teams from each league do you think are going to get a bite of the college football playoff?
Ooh, that's tough. If Alabama keeps going the way they're going, I think they're for sure in. I think I'm just thinking about the SEC here now.
Yeah.
A&M, I'm looking at their schedule. I think they're going to pull it out against Missouri. I think I don't know about this LSU game though. That's going to be tough. I think that they can beat Texas at the end of the year. So I think Alabama, A&M. I'm thinking about a team like Georgia. So I think the SEC gets three. I think The Big Ten gets Ohio State. They get Indiana. And I think they could still get Oregon in there. So I think they get three. So that's six of the 12. Um, for sure, three for both the Big Ten and the SEC. I think the Big 12 for sure would get one, maybe two. I think in BYU, potentially a Cincinnati type of team, potentially a Texas Tech could still stay in the running. So I think they may get two. So that puts us at eight. I think a team like South Florida might get in the bunch from sort of outside the Power Four per se. Um, and then I think maybe like another group of five team gets in. I don't know. It's tough. I think for sure though, in my mind, there's three in both the SEC, the Big Ten, two in the Big 12. I think the ACC gets Georgia Tech. We thought earlier on in the year it would be Clemson. That's not happening anymore. I don't know really who else from the ACC would get in. Uh,
Miami.
Miami, I guess you're right. They did stumble this past week against Louisville. Maybe Louisville jumps in there at some point.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think you're spot on with the Big Ten. I don't see Ohio State dropping a game unless it's to Michigan. And then Indiana, like their schedule's a cakewalk. I know they have UCLA at home this weekend, and UCLA has played much better football. But after that, it's so easy for Indiana. Like you're playing Maryland, who is improved, Penn State, oh, Wisconsin, oh my gosh, and then Purdue. Like
Yeah.
Indiana should win out. Like I don't see how they're not playing in Indianapolis. And then Ohio State for sure. Um, and I do think Oregon gets back in there. They looked really, really strong against Rutgers this past weekend.
Mm,
But I don't really have another team. I mean, if you're Michigan, you got to beat Ohio State, of course. I think Illinois, like just because of how they lost to Indiana and Ohio State, them at 10-2 is not a surefire thing. They
no.
really need to prove it against Washington this weekend. So I think Big Ten three, SEC. I still like it at three with it being A&M and Alabama. Um, but I think a couple teams get eliminated this weekend. Like LSU, I think they get eliminated this weekend. Tennessee could still have another 10-2 year and do what they did last year. And I think the winner of Vanderbilt, Missouri could easily get in. So I'm three there. Then when we got like the ACC, I think like what we're seeing with Georgia Tech, we like what we're seeing there. I still could see Miami getting back in there, but I'm going to go with Virginia. Like their
Mm,
schedule going forward, so easy. North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, Virginia Tech. I
yeah.
shouldn't say so easy. Like Cal, Wake Forest, Duke are all like choppy teams, but they should be favored in all those
That's an
games, I'd
easy schedule for
imagine.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Big 12, like I think BYU's still in the driver's seat. But I would also say that like Houston, they could still get in there.
Mm,
Arizona State's like now that they have Levitt back, like I think
yep.
the committee could forgive a loss of how they lost to Utah. There's a couple teams that I think could finish with two losses that could still be ahead of some of the teams that also would have two losses and nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, Notre Dame's not out of it.
Who do you think out of the team? Like I talked about South Florida. Who do you think about like that sort of echelon of teams? Like think
Mm,
about like North Texas. You think about Navy.
yeah.
What do you think they get two teams in there, or do you think it's just one of those teams?
I think, like, if you actually watch the North Texas South Florida game, it was a lot closer than the score indicated, but still, North Texas doesn't really play anybody. Memphis losing to UAB looks bad.
That's rough.
Yeah. Tulane, I think because the win versus Duke and the win versus Northwestern continue to look better, both of those
Yeah.
teams only have two losses. I think it's possible that if South Florida runs the table and Tulane runs the table, and you're looking at both teams who don't play each other in the regular season, and they both go into that conference championship game 11-1, maybe if other things fall apart behind them. Um, Maybe. I don't think that any other league is as best positioned as the American. Conference USA, the best team right now is Kennesaw State, who did lose to Wake Forest only by one, but they got routed by Indiana. Like, routed.
Yeah.
The MAC has nobody better than 4-3. Um, the Mountain West still has Boise at 5-2, but the loss to South Florida keeps them always behind them.
What about UNLV? How are they doing lately?
Well, they did lose to Boise, so they're sitting at 6-1.
That's true.
But everything is still kind of in front of them as far as conference play goes, I think. Um, San Diego State, they did beat Cal this year, but they did lose
San
to
Diego
Wazoo.
State's looking decent.
Yeah, they're looking decent. I mean,
Denegal at
potentially,
quarterback, like he's pretty solid.
yeah. What are the chances that the American champ gets a home game?
I don't know.
So ranked in the, they would have to be ranked 6, 7,
Would the
or
committee do
5, 6,
that?
7, 8.
Would the committee do that just to like have a team from the American in there? Like a lot of people felt that way with the Mountain West getting Boise State in there last year. Obviously they had Ashton Genty, who was a Heisman contender, runner up, all of
Yeah,
that stuff. But I don't know if the committee would do that again, just given the way that Penn State beat Boise State.
maybe, but Boise's resume looked really good last year, and they
Yeah.
played Oregon the unequivocal number one better than anybody in the regular season. I
I
don't
don't know.
know. I could see the American champ if they're 12-1 and they're South Florida or Tulane, and Ole Miss also makes the playoff because Tulane did lose to Ole Miss. Like maybe Tulane or South Florida does get a home game, or if
Could happen.
Navy somehow runs the table.
Yeah, and I think in that scenario, South Florida might be in danger of losing Alex Golesh to a team like Florida.
Yeah,
I think a lot of teams will want to snatch him up after the end of this year.
I know, but he can't leave when they're in the playoff, right?
Yeah, real.
So real. There's a very real situation that Navy could win the American, which is a Friday night conference championship game. Then Sunday could come and they could be selected for the playoff. And then 6 days later, they would have to play Army
Oh God,
after being selected.
that's crazy. They got to, I mean, that's their Super Bowl. They got to win that one.
I mean, what would you do if you're the Navy coach and you win the American, you get selected for the playoff, like, and you have to play Army, but you're already making the playoff? Like, how do you
You just like
approach
throw
that?
in the towel. Is it just like a bowl game where you're just like, oh, I'm gonna rest my starters and
I don't know what they would do. I don't think that they would go that far, but it would really be a testament to what is that game more valued than a postseason playoff berth.
yeah, Blake Horvath for Heisman.
Is that your guy right now?
I don't know. I mean, he's looking tough. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna get a spot in New York, if I'm being honest. But I just like the idea of it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Should we
Um,
do a quick pick 'em?
yeah,
Wrap it up.
let's just go between teams that are ranked on ranked.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. Nice. Okay, let's start it off. Ole Miss traveling to Oklahoma. Who's taking home this one?
Man, I think John Mateer is gonna get back on the saddle, and he's gonna be back to where he was early on in the season before that Texas game. And I think Ole Miss is going to continue to stumble. I feel like Ole Miss continues to be overrated. They lost to Georgia this past weekend. I think John Mateer is going to have a stellar game at home. I got Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Oklahoma. I think that Ole Miss, they're a pretty decent team, and I think that they're strong. But I think they're going to stumble here, but the schedule gets easier. You got South Carolina, Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State to close out. So it's very possible that you lose this game, win the rest, finish 10-2, and you're playing in the playoffs. So I think that this is one where they stumble because this is one where if you're Oklahoma, like you really want to get back on the saddle, you want to do it at home. This is the time to do it. So I'm with you. I got Oklahoma. All right.
Heck yeah.
It's not ranked on ranked, but I wanted to include it because there's only a few ranked on ranked matchups.
Yeah.
South Florida traveling to a Memphis team that just lost to UAB. They lost the Battle of the Bones trophy in that one.
I think Memphis is going to bounce back, but I don't have them winning. I think South Florida is going to continue to win all of these games with the opportunity to run the table. And I believe this is the game that I'm thinking of, but North Texas, I think, plays, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they play North Texas, or North Texas plays South Florida at some point. Wait,
Oh,
no,
they
maybe
already played. Yeah.
They already did? Okay, okay. What was I looking at? I don't know. There was some game where they were going to be sold out. Anyways, South Florida, I have them winning. I have them beating Memphis. I think Memphis is going to keep it close. They're going to bounce back after a terrible game against UAB, but I think South Florida is going to win.
Yeah, I think South Florida is going to win as well. And then your big remaining test is Navy in mid-November at Navy, and coming from Florida to go up to Maryland at that point of the year, that's going to be tough. So I got
Yeah.
South Florida as well. I think that they're the team to beat still in the group of five. Okay, group of six. Missouri traveling to Vanderbilt. Battle of two 6-1 teams, and man, playoff hopes on the line.
I got Vandy at home. I think Diego Pavia is going to continue to be on his tear. I think the ground game has been great as well. And I think their defense is going to be strong too. And I think Missouri is going to lose this one. I like Pribula. I like the run game with Ahmad Hardy. But yeah, I think Vanderbilt's going to continue to win and could have an opportunity in the CFP race.
Yeah, this is a look ahead for both squads because Missouri's next game is against Texas A&M. Vanderbilt's next game is against Texas. So we're going to see who can come out on top of this one. I say the winner of this game loses their next game, and the loser
Yeah.
of this game wins their next game. So
All
I'm going to
right.
go with Missouri to beat Vanderbilt, and I think Vanderbilt takes it to Texas the next week and eliminates them from the playoff race. So I got
Okay.
Missouri in this one to keep their playoff hopes alive
I like it.
for at least another week. Okay, tough one, tough one. It's not ranked on ranked, but I wanted to include it because maybe it should be. BYU going to Iowa State.
I got BYU in Ames. I think Bear Bachmeier is going to continue his star season. Played well against rival Utah in the Holy War last week. He continues to impress as a freshman, even with that weird number of 47. I got BYU.
Okay, this is an Iowa State team that is battle tested. Like one possession win against Kansas State, one possession win against Iowa, one possession win against Arkansas State, one possession loss against Cincinnati, one possession loss against Colorado. I think they bounce back at home. I can't imagine Iowa State, this team, and Rocco Beck entering November without being at least slightly still in the playoff picture. So I say they get BYU and make this Big 12 race a little bit more compelling. So I'm going to go Rocco Beck, Iowa State at home. Okay.
Nice.
All right. Texas A&M, LSU, and then one more.
I hate this pick because I need LSU to win, but I think A&M's still going to win, even though it's in Death Valley. It's at Baton Rouge. All these different things. I think Nussmeier could make it a good game, but I just still think A&M is the team to beat in the SEC.
I think A&M gets this win as well. I think that they are right behind Alabama in terms of like resumes of SEC schools, as I mentioned. I think LSU is going to be looking ahead to their road game at Alabama. I think Brian Kelly takes this loss. I don't think LSU lets him go, though, because he will still have a chance to prove his worth against Alabama. But this stretch is going to be very, very important for the future that he has in Baton Rouge. Okay, last one. Let's do Illinois traveling to Washington.
I want to pick Washington. I love this Washington team. Even though they lost to Michigan, I still think that they're a great team that could bounce into the top 25 at some point. Damon Williams Jr. at quarterback, I think he's a Kyler Murray 2.0 in his prime at Oklahoma. I think their running back, Jonah Coleman, is one of the best running backs in the country. I think Denzel Boston is going to be a top 15 pick in the draft. So all of those things combined with their defense, who's sputtering a little bit, I just can't imagine them losing in Seattle against this Illinois squad. I think it'll be a close game, but I got Washington.
Okay, very interesting. I think Illinois keeps their playoff hopes alive. I also have Illinois in my fantasy league, so I'm gonna want to keep this one. So I think Illinois travels over the Rockies and beats Washington in this Big Ten matchup, runs the table against the Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. What a wild November. I think they get this win, and it'll be a marquee win for their resume because I think Washington, like you said, is pretty good. But Illinois, this offense scores against every other defense outside of Indiana and Ohio State. So
Yeah,
I got Illinois in this one.
good pick.
Nice. Okay, we're differing on a few this week. Okay,
Yeah, going against the
nice.
grain.
I love it. Okay, well that's all. Do we got anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Nice. Peace. Sweet. Okay, cool. Well, that's it for our show heading into week 9. We will catch you all up next week with some more Heisman talk, some more trivia, some more quizzes, some more mascot mania. But for Jacob Vanderford, I'm Bryan Partika. This is College Football Tradition.
Later.